Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another edition of the Golden Age. This is a series of Warhammer Fantasy Battle Reports for an 8th edition, and this is Battle Report number 60. It is a 2,000 point battle that is fought between myself as well as my friend Iron Major. The both of us are throwing it down to 2,000 points. Iron Major is playing the Fellhold Nations, a 2,000 point Dwarves army, and I am playing the Legion of the Hellmouth, a 2,000 point Ogre Kingdoms army. So we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what we're taking for this battle report, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought or why we died. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Balor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then to hell with you.
Alright, so let's go and talk about the scenario rules for this one. This one is Battle-Line Scenario. It is the most common, basic type of Warhammer Fantasy battle there is. It's the very best scenario that we like to play with my gaming group. It has standard deployments with 12-inch deployment zones with 24 inches in between both deployment areas, as well as standard victory conditions as always. It's the basic, most versatile type of Warhammer fantasy scenario that there is, and that's the one we like playing. Alright, so with the scenario rules over, let's go and talk about the battle plan real quick. As you can see, we're playing on a 4x6 table. My friend Iron Major is deployed on the far side of the table, while I'm deployed on the near side of the table. We have a village with some farmlands right in the middle, as well as some forests and hills on the flanks, and a tower in the back left-hand corner. And as you can see, the battle is kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It kind of bottlenecks a little bit, because the way the terrain is spread about, there's only really 3 avenues of approach that I can take to attack my opponent. Either option 1, which you can see here in this photo, I'm going to charge straight down the gullet right in the middle of the battlefield towards my opponent, or I can go around the left-hand side, around the temple there on the left-hand side and flank left, or go the extreme far right, as you can see my Warfang cavalry over there, in order to flank on the right-hand side as well. Now, my friend Iron Major is playing a gunline list for the Dwarves. This is the same 2,000 points gunline army list that I created in earlier episodes of the Golden Age, and it's a very devastating army list. It's very difficult to fight against, especially if you're a close combated oriented army like my Ogre Kingdoms are. So because of this, my main tactic is very much an Ogre Kingdoms tactic. That is to charge across the battlefield as quickly as I can, engage him in close combat, and finish him off. Because if I lollygag and spend my time trying to be clever, trying to go to the battlefield, I'll just get shot to pieces one unit at a time, because Iron Mage will just concentrate fire on all my units. And that's pretty much what the idea I'm going with on this one. So on the left-hand side, my powder gangers are going to try to flank on the left-hand side along the farm, as well as the pigsty right there, and try to engage his quarrelers on the left-hand flank and shoot them with their lead belcher guns. I'm going to send my Ogre Bulls as well as my Iron Guts. I'm going to send them charging straight down the gullet directly into his huge unit of 40 Dwarf Warriors, because if I can break his center, I can destroy his army. And at the same time, I'm sending my Mornfang Cav there on the right-hand side to flank right to take on his Thunderers on the right-hand side. Because the only weakness that a Dwarf gunline has is that if you attack the flanks, you actually stand a better chance of surviving, because Dwarves have either move or fire weaponry, so if you force them to move, they lose a round of shooting, and that's pretty much what I'm kind of going with my tactic on this one. So with that being said, let's go ahead and zoom in real quick and talk about the deployment areas for each one of the armies. Alright, so starting with the Ogre Kingdoms here on the left-hand side, these are my powder gangers. These are 4 lead belchers. There's with a bellower was the only thing upgrade that they have for the unit. They're carrying lead belcher guns. Those things are amazing. They offer D6 strength 4 armor piercing hits when they get within range. So I'm really excited about using these guys around. It's kind of a mixed bag with these guys. Sometimes they're on fire and they just destroy everything in their way, and sometimes, you know, not so much. But anyways, that makes my left-hand flank for my army. In the center is where most of my army is located at. Starting on the left-hand side, that is the Red Rovers. It is a unit of 6 Ogre Bulls that are armed with hand weapons as well as Iron Fists and light armor. Full command as well. There's 6 straight-laced bulls, all they really are on that side. Right in the center, though, that's where most of my killing power is located at. That is the unit known as Kingdoms Legion. It is a unit of 9 Ogre Iron Guts. They have great weapons and heavy weapon as well. They also have full command that unit. They also have a Dragonhide banner as well, which gives me a breath of weapon attack that gives them always strike a last to my opponents, and it's also breath weapon that's strength 3 as well. So it's kind of a cool thing to put on Iron Guts unit as well. In that unit as well, I also have my 3 characters. On the left hand side, that is Burpso Blood. That is my Slaughter Master. He's a level 4 Slaughter Master Butcher. He's got Spine Marrow for a spell, as well as Bone Crusher, Brain Gobbler, as well as Troll Guts. He's also packing the armor of Silvered Steel, so he gets a 2-up armor save, and he's also packing the Hellheart to cause miscast, which is not really going to be helpful for me on this one because my opponent is playing Dwarves and they have no wizards. In the center, that is my general. That is Taijin Khan, the Right Fist of Hell. He is a tyrant. He's got armor of glittering scales. He's got the Greedy Fist, as well as Fencer's Blade. So that way he's got paired weapons, weapon skill 10, -1 to hit against because of the glittering scales. He's also got +1 strength because of the Greedy Fist, and also if he manages to save a wound from magical weapon, which is pretty important because dwarves are known to carry those, becomes a mundane weapon instead. So that's my general. On the right hand side, that is Korgul, the Spine Splitter. He's my bruiser, who's also Battle Center Bearer as well. He's carrying the Rune Maul. He's also got the Giant Breaker Big Name as well as a great weapon. So that guy is strength 8 on close combat, so pretty deadly right there. And that's where most of my killing power is located for my army. And finally, my far right-hand flank, that is my Mornfang Cavalry. That unit is called the Beast Claw Raiders. It is 3 Mornfang Cavalry. They have hand weapons, heavy armor, as well as Iron Fists for extra armor support. And that pretty much makes up my right-hand flank on this one. Alright, so let's go talk about Iron Mage's deployment. On the left-hand side, that is Clan Izmir the Vengeful Ones. That is a unit of 18 Dwarf Quarrelers. They have great weapons and hand weapons and shield. They also carry Dwarf crafted crossbows, and also they have full command for that unit as well. Right next to them, that huge unit that is Clan Roadsoaker, the Cursed Company. That is a huge unit of 37 Dwarf Warriors with hand weapons and shields and heavy armor. They also have full command as well. In that unit, he's got 3 characters. On the left-hand side, that is Ragnar the Spellbreaker, who is a rune smith with Gromril armor, great weapon. He's also got a rune of spellbreaking. In the center on that shield bearer unit, that is his general. That is Ivar Bodison, the Lord of Fallen Holds. He's mounted on shield bearers. He's got 2 runes of iron and a rune of fortitude, I believe, so he's kit out to be invincible. He's also got a dwarf runic weapon with the rune of parrying on it, so his -1 hit against him as well. A very tanky build. I think he's got 7 wounds, and I forgot what his toughness is, but he's really hard to beat on that one. Got to work out for that guy, especially if I take him on a challenge. And the third character there with that giant B banner there, that is Yorick Shatter Shield. That is his Thane, who's also Battle Standard Bearer. He's got the Master Rune of Ayala, giving him +2 for dispels, and he's also on an Oath Stone and carrying a great weapon as well as Gromril armor as well. In the back left-hand side, that is a Rememberer. It is a Grudge Thrower with 1 rune of penetration, so because of that, it has strength 4 hits for its attacks, as well as strength 10 for the center for the blast template. And the back, that is the Star of Eld, which is a dwarf cannon, and I believe it just has a rune of accuracy, I believe. That's the only thing that it has on it. And that pretty much makes up my opponent's left-hand flank as well as his center. And finally, on his right-hand flank, he has Clan Helheim, the Fallen of the Dragonbacks. That is a unit of 17 Dwarf Thunderers. They got hand weapons, shields, as well as dwarf crafted handguns. They have full command as well. In that unit, he's also got Grim Borluxon, the special character, and give bonuses to war machines, which he pretty much is going to be using for his organ gun, which is the back there, which is the Decemberus of Winter's Past. There's an organ gun with a rune of accuracy on it, so that way they could use their the engineer's 5-up ballistic skill on it. It makes it really, really deadly. That's a deadly combination right there as well. And that pretty much makes up Iron Mage's right-hand flank for this battle report. So with the deployment, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and my friend and I roll off to see who goes first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Ogre Kingdoms, and this photo is taken after the movement phase, and as you can see in this photo, I move kind of cautiously forward. The reason why is because I don't want to be countercharged in this situation as well, because then my units will get bogged down, and I'll be stuck, and I can't go anywhere. I just get taken apart by artillery fire as well as long-range fire. So I do march up forward with 8 inches with all my units. I got my Powder Gangers on the left-hand side, my Red Rovers in the center, as well as my Kingdoms Legion moving up to the center as well. At the same time, the far right-hand flank with my Mornfang Cavalry from the Beastclaw Raiders, I move them up their full 16 inches with marching, and I move them right next to that house, so that way they're not exactly fully targeted, but at the same time, though, they are bigger targets, so all it takes is just one guy to be seen for the unit to get hit. So that's pretty much the move phase on this one. Pretty straightforward. So here's a close-up of the Powder Gangers as well as the Red Rovers moving across the battlefield as quickly as they can. And let's just take a moment to just look at this terrain that's in the middle of this photo. That is a chicken coop that is built by the guy I'm playing against. That's Iron Major. Iron Major's our resident terrain maker, and I know I've talked about this chicken coop all the time, but just look at the detail though, right? You got hedgerows, you got little chicken models inside of it, you got like, look at those shingles and the way that the chicken coop is built. It's just amazing, just a lot of detail that he puts into his models. And right there you can also see the top of the farm field right there, the top of it, right in front of the Powder Gangers as well. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm sorry, I'm digressing. And then right on the right hand side there's the Red Rovers as well, moving up to protect the left hand flank for my main column of Iron Guts. And right next to them on the right-hand side, right outside the pigsty full of dead pigs, we have the Kingdoms Legion, which is that huge column of Iron Guts with my 3 characters built in the middle of it. And those guys are getting ready to just bring the pain, which is pretty awesome as well. And here's a close-up of the Beastclaw Raiders moving across to the right-hand flank around those farmers' fields, so that way they can put some pressure onto Clan Hellmouth as well as take out his organ gun, because I fear that thing, because the dwarf organ guns are the stuff of nightmares. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. So with the move phase over with, that takes directly to the magic phase, and the only thing I managed to get off was Bone Crusher. I really had a small amount of power dice for this round. I cast Bone Crusher because I was trying to pull out some of Iron Major's Dispel dice from his pool, but he didn't fall for the bait. He just kind of let that spell go off. So I do kill 2 crossbowmen, which isn't, much of anything, but I can take what I get at this point. I did try to save my rest of my power dice though to cast Troll Guts because I want that 5-up regen from most of my infantry units, because they're gonna get shot to pieces here in a second. But Iron Major saw through my plan and managed to dispel that spell with no problem, just using the power dice that he had in his dispel pool. So that was pretty sad as well. And that pretty much breaks up turn number 1. I can't shoot because all my units march forward. There's nobody in close combat, so we directly to bottom turn number 1 for the Dwarves. So that takes directly to bottom turn number 1 for the Dwarves, and this photo is taken after the move phase. And as you can see, there's no move that takes place at all, which also makes sense because why would he move? He's dwarves. There's no reason for him to move at all because this is a dwarf gunline list. In fact, if he moves, it's actually a disadvantage to him because he won't be able to shoot. So, as you can see, he's pretty much staying exactly where he's located at, has no need to move whatsoever. And here's a close-up of his army, just because I just like the way this army looks. I did a really good job painting it. Not to, get big on myself, but I did a really good job. I'm just really glad of the way that came out. It looks so good. Just look at it. Just look at all that metal and color. Just pure awesomeness. So with moving over with, we go past the magic phase and skip that because dwarves don't play that game, because we're moving on to the shooting phase, which is the real dwarf magic phase. And I actually got pretty lucky on this one. He opens up with the Decemberist of Winter's Pass, his organ gun, and he uses Grim Borloxen's ballista skill in order to make sure that he hits his targets. But when he rolled up for his dice, I think he rolled a 4? No, he rolled an 8 as well as a misfire. So because of that, he only has the number of shots that he gets. So he only gets 4 shots. Unfortunately, 3 of those 4 shots did wound, so that part was kind of sad. So because of that, one of my Mornfang cavalry is carrying half wounds as well. So that part is kind of devastating. At the same time, the Growth Thrower also launches one of its shells directly into my unit of Iron Guts. He actually put the template right in front of my general originally, but he actually scatters straight forward 2 inches, so it lands right in the middle of my guys. As you can see there, ends up hitting 5 of my ogres, pretty devastating on that part as well. When it was all said and done, however, he did manage to kill one of my ogres straight up and managed to put 2 floating wounds onto another one, so that part was kind of sad as well. And so that was the Grudge Thrower to remember. The next thing he opens up with is the Sorrows of Eld, his cannon. And that thing just flies forward and kills 2 more of my ogres, of my Iron Guts as well, which is pretty bad. He then also combines fires with his Thunderers from the Clan Hellmouth and the Quarrelers of Clan Izmir directly onto my unit of Ogre Bulls, my Iron Guts. Managed to kill 3 more of those guys as well, so that unit is almost close to half the strength, which is pretty demoralizing because I'm going to beat every single Ogre I can get by the time I get into close combat with, so that part was kind of sad. So when we go done with the shooting phase, we skip close combat because nobody's engaged, and we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Ogre Kingdoms. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Ogre Kingdoms, and as you can see in this photo, this is after the move phase, and all kinds of failure just happened in this photo. It was really bad. I originally tried to charge. I declared charge with 3 of my units. I declared charges with my Ogre Bulls originally. I declared a charge. I rolled my 2d6 thinking I was able to make the distance, and I rolled a 4. So those guys move up like 2 inches. Then I declare a charge with my Iron Guts, and I rolled a 2d6, and I rolled a 4 again. Now, just to tell you what the 4s were, for my Bulls it was a 3 and a 1, and then for my Lead Belchers it was a 2 and a 2. Not my Lead Belchers, my Iron Guts, it was a 2 and a 2, so I go forward like 3 inches. So that was horrific. So now my units of close combat guys are stuck right in the middle of the field of fire with all these dwarves aiming down the barrel at them, so that's just wonderful. I then declare a charge with my Beast Clawed Raiders on the right hand side, and they rolled like a 7, I think is what it ended up being, so I go forward like 4 inches. So as you can guess, like, this is really bad for my units now, because now my main close combat units are right in the middle of the field of fire with no cover whatsoever, and they go through another round of shooting with dwarves, which is really bad at the same time. Now, the only good thing was that I do move up my powder gangers on the left-hand side. They're kind of right there on the other side of that farmer's field, so they are now within range of opening up with their lead belcher guns onto Clan Izmir. So, you know, that is the silver lining, I guess. And that pretty much makes up the move phase on this one. So here's a close-up of the powder gangers getting ready to open up with their lead belcher guns onto Clan Izmir, about to bring the pain. And here's a close-up of the Red Rovers as well as Dwarves Legion failing their charges and being stuck right in the middle of the field of fire. So now I have to brace myself for another round of dwarf shooting, so that's going to be rough. And here's a close-up of my Beast Clawed Raiders also failing their charge, getting ready to be shot at by that organ gun here in a little bit, so that's also kind of sad as well. And this also makes up my entire turn, this photo does as well, because for my magic phase, I do manage to get 5 power dice, and I try to use all 5 to get the bubble version of Troll Guts, but my opponent dispels that using the rune of Spell Breaking. I actually rolled a 23, which is pretty awesome, with no double 6s. It was awe-inspiring. But then my opponent uses Iron Major, he just uses the rune of Spell Breaking, just destroys that spell, so thanks Iron Major, way to go on that one. And to make the matters worse, I did open up with my dwarf, my lead belchers directly onto Clan Izmir, and I think I got off like 5 or 6 shots, something really, really bad, and none of them hit. I just rolled like a bunch of 1s and 2s like I was going out of style, so that part's pretty horrific as well. And since I didn't charge into close combat, there is no close combat, and that pretty much makes up my epic round of failure for turn number 2. So that being said, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the dwarves. So here's the top of turn number 2, bottom of turn number 2 for the dwarves, and this photo is taken after the movement phase, and as you can see, not much movement takes place with dwarves for the most part. The only thing that really happens is that on the right hand side, Clan Hellheim does kind of like a little bit of a wheel formation to square off directly against my Beast Claw Raiders. Now the only good thing about that is that they can't shoot this round because they moved, so silver lining, I guess. But at the same time, though, I can't catch these guys on the flank either, which means I have to charge directly forward into them. Now, if I do that, I do have to worry about being shot at by Overwatch, because they can stand and fire as I charge across them, so that's one of the things I gotta risk. But at the same time, though, if I can't commit my forces, they're gonna get blasted away by artillery, so them's the break, I suppose. And that pretty much makes up the move phase on this one. And here's a dynamic shot and close-up of Clan Hellheim getting ready to bring the pain with some handguns as well as that organ gun, so yay. So we skip the dwarf magic phase and go to the real dwarf magic phase with the shooting phase, and the first thing he does, he opens up with the Sorrows of Elda's Great Cannon. He lands it right directly into the path of my general. It bounces from the impact point, I think 6 inches, so it goes through 2 of my ogres, which will be my general, as well as the iron gun right behind him. Now, I try to roll out for a lookout sword roll for my general Taijin Khan, but unfortunately for him, though, he failed his lookout sword roll, so because that takes the cannonball straight into him, and unfortunately for me, I lose 3 wounds on that one, so that was pretty devastating. Luckily for me, though, Tyrants have 5 wounds, so he's still got 2 more left. But at the same time, though, he's like almost like a third of the way dead, and that is absolutely horrible. Now, I did get lucky when the cannonball flew through him and hit the second guy. He rolled a 1, so because of that, nothing much really happened there. So that part's kind of lucky on that part. But yeah, absolutely devastating on that. At the same time, I also got extremely lucky for the rest of the shooting phase. The Remember, when he fired his grudge thrower, went 10 inches to the left, so because that went way off, so it didn't manage to hit anything. And he also kind of flubbed his shot to the Clan Izmir. They weren't able to do much of anything to open up with their shooting phase, so that part was kind of nice as well. He originally targeted the Bulls for the Red Rovers, what he tried to do originally, but he actually just flubbed his rolls pretty bad. I think the one that got through... Wait, no, none got through now. I think about it, yeah. It was just really bad. He didn't really manage to do anything mostly for the shooting phase. And that pretty much makes up the dwarf turn because nobody's engaged in close combat. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Ogre Kingdoms. And that takes us directly to top of turn number 3 after the move phase for the Ogre Kingdoms. As you can see in this one, I finally closed a distance and I charged forward. So that part was actually kind of cool. So for the first part, let's talk about the right hand side. First of all, I declare a charge with my Warfang Cavalry. They go directly into Clan Hellmouth of the Dragonbacks. They do manage to put a wound onto one of, no, sorry, 2 wounds onto one of my one of my Warfang Cavalry, so that part was kind of sad as well. So he only got 1 wound left, but at the same time though he can still fight, technically speaking, so that'd be kind of nice as well. At the same time, I do charge in both the Red Rovers as well as the Dwarves Kingdoms Legion directly into the Dwarf Warriors. Now if you're wondering why one of the Lead Belchers is missing, not Lead Belchers, one of the Iron Guts is missing. I forgot to mention this. I made a mistake this last time when I was talking about it. The actual crossbow actually opened up on my my Iron Guts and managed to kill one of them is what they ended up doing. So I do apologize for that part. I was looking at my notes, got that kind of messed up. Now when I charged forward though, I didn't manage to break 10 or higher, so these guys don't get D whatever impact hits, and I get the 1 impacted for each of them. I believe the Red Rovers rolled a 9 and my Dwarves Kingdoms Legion rolled 8 if I remember correctly. So because of that, they only charge forward. So they get 1 impact hit apiece, which is still kind of nice. At the same time, I also move up the Powder Gangers to kind of protect the left-hand flank of the Red Rovers, because I'm going to have my Powder Gangers open up onto Clan Izmir, hopefully cause some damage, and then hopefully I can charge them in and kind of protect my left-hand flank as well. And that pretty much makes up the move phase on this one. So here's a close of the Powder Gangers, getting ready to bring the pain with some shooting directly into Clan Izmir. At the same time, you can see the Red Rovers charging directly into Clan Roadsoaker, the Cursed Company. And here's a close-up of Clan Roadsoaker being engaged by both the Dwarves Kingdoms Legion as well as the Red Rovers, because my Ogres are about to bring the pain onto those Dwarves. So we'll see what ends up happening in the combat phase. So I'm really excited to see what happens. And here's a close-up of the Beastclaw Raiders charging directly into Clan Hellmouth. So I'm really excited to see how this combat goes, because each of those Morphang get D3 impact hits, which would be really awesome to see exactly what happens to these Dwarves when it's all said and done. So with the movement phase over, we go directly to the magic phase. And the magic phase, just because I'm feeling panicky, I decided to take all 6 of my power dice, and I decided to 6-die the Troll Guts, the big version of Troll Guts, and I managed to get that spell off, so everything within 12 inches gets a 5 regen, so my Powder Gangers, my Red Rovers, as well as Dwarves Kingdoms Legion all get 5 regen, which is pretty awesome to say the least. Now, however, in order to get that spell off, though, I did roll double 6s in there, so because I do miscast on this one.
Klaatu, Miranda,
And I miscast 6 on the one drum, which means the small blast template gets put right on top of my my Slaughtermaster, and it explodes and causes all kinds of problems on this one. What ended up happening is that, let me see, it puts 1 wound on my Butcher, so my Slaughtermaster takes 1 wound. I also put 1 on my enemy General as well, so because of that, what's his name, Ivar Bodison has 1 wound coming on him. I also get 1 onto one of my Ogre Bulls when it ended up happening, and then I also killed 3 Dwarves. So that part was kind of nice. Killed more Dwarves, actually it was kind of 50-50, put more wounds on Dwarves than I did on myself. So that part is kind of cool. So that pretty much rounds up the magic phase, because the rest of my Paradise kind of went away after that. So here's another close-up of that blast, so that way you can see exactly where the wounds kind of laid out at. So 1 for my Ogre Bulls and 1 for my Slaughtermaster. And then I got the 3, of course, carrying for my General. And you can see 1 red die in the back. That's what's represented for the Dwarf General, Ivar Bodison. So that's pretty much how the wounds broke out from that blast template. So that being said, we go directly into the shooting phase, and my Lead Belchers actually managed to plink off 6 members of the Quarrelers from Clan Izmir, so that part was pretty nice as well. In fact, Clan Izmir took so many wounds, they actually had to take a panic test, but, I mean, let's face it, these guys are Dwarves. Dwarves don't break. I mean, if they do break, it is a bad day for everyone involved if they do break, so because of that, Dwarves stand their ground, they don't care, because Dwarves would rather die than be dishonored, because that's the way they roll. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And the combat phase. Good God, the combat phase between these Dwarves and my Ogres. That was completely one-sided in this combat phase. So let's go and talk about that real quick. So first of all, I do manage to kill 4 Dwarf Warriors with impact hits alone from both the Red Rovers as well as from Dwarves Kingdoms Legion. So not much to write home about, but at the same time, those 4 less Dwarves I gotta worry about. At the same time, I also popped the Dragonhide banner as well from my Lead Belchers, and my Iron Guts. So because I managed to kill 3 Dwarves at the same time from that Strength 3 breath weapons, so that part was kind of cool as well. Plus, I made all the Dwarves always strike last, so even though they're carrying hand weapons, they're got to strike last, so that part was kind of cool as well. Now, it doesn't do much against my, for my Iron Guts, because they're carrying great weapons as well, so they'll be striking at the same time, but more on that here in a later bit. We'll talk about that here in a second. So, what ends up coming on with the fight. So what ends up happening is that my opponent decides to declare a challenge with his general, with Ivar Bodison, the Lord of Fallen Holds. And because I want to see what my general can do, I of course answer the call. So because of that, Taijin Khan, the Right Fist of Hell, and Lord Ivar Bodison, the Lord of Fallen Holds, they fight each other in close combat. By the time it was all said and done, I managed to put 4 wounds onto the Dwarf Lord, so that part was kind of cool. Now the Dwarf Lord put 2 wounds onto my general, but I saved one of those wounds, so he actually put 1 wound on me. But because I have the Greedy Fist, because I blocked that wound, his runic weapon now just becomes a mundane weapon, so he loses -1 to strike against in the next round of close combat. So both those characters still alive, so they will go another round if it comes down to that. Now, when it comes down to the regular fighting in the end, by the time it's all said and done, 2 things pretty much saved my life. 1, the Always Strike Last really helped out a lot because that means I could put a lot more of attacks out with my Ogre Bulls before he could counterattack. And the second thing that saved a lot of me was my 5-up regen save. That part was really important on this one, helped out a lot. By the time it was all said and done, when it got done, I think I actually killed 9 dwarves with my bulls, is what ended up happening. And I managed to kill 10 dwarves with my iron guts, and ended up happening for that one as well. And for me, I took no losses whatsoever, and that part was actually kind of crazy how that ended up happening. His Runesmith really flubbed his roll, so not much really came from that character when he tried to fight against my bulls. York Shadow Shield, his Battle Center Bear, also did not do very well. He managed to get 1 wound through, and I believe it was the onto my Slaughtermaster, but the 2 iron were saved, so it ended up saving him for that one, so that pretty much went nowhere for that. And the rest of his warriors just really couldn't do much of anything, but a lot of those regions saves got saved. Plus I also had stomp attacks as well, which also added to the chaos as well. So needless to say, I won this combat by a landslide, and my opponent has to basically roll Snake Eyes in order to stay it. Needless to say, he did not roll Snake Eyes, so because of that, my Stank Kingdoms Legion charges forward to go chase them down. The dwarves run back 5 inches, and my Stank Kingdoms Legion rolls forward 9 inches. So because of that, they overrun the survivors of Clan Road Sulker, and they manage to slice those guys down and beat them down to the ground. And the nice part about that too is because they overran so far, they charge directly into the Sorrows of El, which is the Great Cannon. So that part is kind of nice. Now my Red Rovers, because they didn't have to worry about chasing them, and they won combat, they did a quick combat reform here, pointing to the left-hand side, so that way they can look directly at the Clan Izmir and engage those guys at close combat. I think either charge the flank or the front. I'm probably going to charge the flank with these guys, so that way my lead belchers could charge forward and get them from the front. So combat was really unstoppable here on this side of the table. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side of the table, the combat between the Beastclaw Raiders and Clan Helheim was pretty devastating for the most part. My Mornfang managed to get 5 impact kills from their impact hits alone, and they managed to kill 5 more dwarves with just their normal close combat attacks from their riders. At the same time, what's his name? Grim Borloxon, he managed to kill my one remaining Mornfang guy who had the 5 floating wounds on him. Managed to kill him, as well as the Thunderers managed to put another wound onto one of my Mornfang cav as well. So they have 2 wounds against my 10. I charge, I have a combat score of 11. I have a standard bearer, which makes it 12. Now he is a standard bearer, drops me down to 1, so I still beat them by 11. So because of that, he has to roll Snake Eyes to stand, and needless to say, he doesn't do that. He rolls a 6 to flee, I roll a 7 to overrun, and because of that, I overrun the unit of Clan Izmir, chopped those guys down to their lesser elements, and killed them all, and then charged directly into the December's of Winter's Past. So because of that, that Ogre Kingdom will now be engaged in close combat the next turn. And at this point, that Iron Mage decides to call the game because he realizes he won't be able to win with the amount of ogres that are coming his way. So because of that, that nets another victory for the Ogre Kingdoms and another defeat for one of my opponents. So that part was pretty awesome as well. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the after action report because this battle report is now officially over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, so now it's time for the after action report. This is a part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the after action report for the Golden Age Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report number 60, and it being a victory for yours truly. So let's go and talk about the losses real quick. For Iron Major, he lost Ivar Bodison, the Lord of Fallen Holds, Ragnar the Spellbreaker, Yorick Shatter Shield, Grim Borloxon, Clan Roadsulker, the Cursed Company, and Clan Helheim, the Fallen of the Dragonbacks. I managed to lose nothing. I took a lot of casualties from my units, but none of them were actually fully blown out, destroyed, so that part was pretty cool as well. And the reason why I was able to do that is because I got lucky during this battle report, needless to say. And the reason why is because turn 2, If the dwarf shooting phase had gone like it usually does in the second turn of the battle report, I believe this battle would have turned out completely different, because my opponent, Iron Major, he's kind of, a lot of his shooting just was ineffective. He wasn't able to draw a lot of wounds or manage to hit it quite a bit. So because of that, my army was still pretty much intact for the most part by the time I closed a distance with him as well. Because if he did manage to get off his shooting like he usually does, the Fellhold Nations would have killed off my 2 main units of infantry. They would have just flat out destroyed them, and then he would have countercharged, and then it would have been like the end of it, and I would have been destroyed again. I credit the reason why I managed to survive that. I mainly credit that to my Blaze Call Raiders threatening the right-hand flanks of the dwarves. By doing this, Clan Hellhind had to redirect their fire, so they couldn't shoot at my infantry units. They had to concentrate on the Mornfang cavalry coming their way, and since they moved, they couldn't shoot, which allowed my Beast Claw Raiders to charge in and also engage in close combat. Because of that, it cut down the army's ability to produce fire dramatically in this battle report, and I think that's the reason why my guys survived as well as it will. Now, a lot of haters out there will always say that, oh, you can't fight against a Dwarf Gunline army because it's impossible, but this video just showed you that it's not, alright? Because the secret to defeating a Dwarf Gunline is you gotta attack the flanks. That's the trick. Because dwarves, whether you know it or not, they actually have nothing but shoot or move missile choices for the army, so if you're outmaneuvering them, they have to move to shoot you. They can't shoot you if they got to move, so that's what you have to do out there. So if you didn't hear anybody complaining about that, that's just because they don't know how to play the game like they're supposed to. I was shocked, however, to see how well my ogres did in close combat against dwarves. Usually when you're fighting against dwarves, it's really one-sided in favor of the dwarves. Usually the dwarves are the one taking it to you and you're pretty much dying at that point, but I did manage to get the upper hand on that one, especially with the fight between my general and his general. I was really shocked to see how that fight went along. Needless to say, this was an extremely fun game against an awesome opponent, and I'm also looking forward to the rematch. Also, if you guys get a chance, please feel free to drop a comment below for Iron Major. Iron Major is the guy who makes all the terrain that you guys see in our gaming channel, both the Necromunda terrain as well as the fantasy terrain, and the man is a positive genius when it comes to making terrain. And he makes it out of scrap materials, styrofoam, cardboard, sand, glue, paint, balsa wood, not balsa wood, popsicle sticks, just normal everyday items that he's making this stuff, and it looks amazing every single time he does it. So please drop down a line for you guys if you can. It would mean a lot to me if you were to talk to him and cheer him up for what he did for the channel. So the man is a genius, so please feel free to do that. Also, please feel free to comment, like, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. And as always, check us out on Facebook, blogger.com, as well as Instagram for latest and greatest for the hobby news for this channel. That's good to do for this one, you guys. You guys stay classy. We will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.